Welcome back to the show, the Union Street Podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We've got a special episode today with Hank and Deanna Deiters. Let's hear it for them. Thanks for being here, guys.
Oh, thanks for having us.
We've got a really cool project, Standard Issue, the musical, an original musical written right here in Southern Illinois. I want to hear all about it, how veterans are connected to this, what is Vets for the Arts, and just hear about your guys' musical a little bit. And I know you just came from a press event at the Civic Center. Can we start there?
Yes, it was great.
Yeah.
We talk about Standard Issue, which we love.
But this whole media stuff is all new to us, and so we're learning a lot as we go along here. It's been a wild ride, but it's been a lot of fun. Everyone's been so nice to us and helping us share the story of this, and we really appreciate Luke. We thank you for having us on today.
I'm excited. You know, this podcast is all about sharing stories, promoting local arts and entertainment, and I think this is a real gem of a story right here. So I'm just happy to be able to share that with our audience too. So let's just jump into it. So can you introduce yourselves a little bit? What is Standard Issue and what is Vets for the Arts? Let's start there.
So Standard Issue is a musical. It's an Army-themed musical. We've been working on it for over 5 years now. What you're going to see this next weekend, I hope, is the culmination of over 5 years of work, refinement, songwriting, all of those things that go into writing a musical like this. So it's taken us a long time. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of stress here recently as we get closer to the show. But it's a show that's written in the Army theme. It is a classic story that any theater fan can enjoy, especially if you love musical theater. If you like storytelling, it's a big, beautiful story that covers the highs and lows of protagonists and antagonists and all kinds of stressful situations. If you're a fan of music, it's got 16 original songs written by Deanna.
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing songs. And it's also, if you're a veteran, we really wanted to write this to invite veterans into the theater space. You know, over the years, I've worked in backstage and sets and stuff like that for musical theater, and I noticed there just weren't many veterans involved. So this was a chance. This was a way to try to get veterans involved in theater, either in the audience watching shows or involved in the production itself.
That's great. And so tell me a little bit more about the name. And before we do that, actually, let's tell our listeners when this will be showing and where.
June 6th through 8th at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. So June 6th and 7th at 7 p.m., and then June 8th, which is Sunday, at 2 p.m. for a matinee show.
Great. So
one time only. World premiere. Who knows if it will ever run again. Come out and see it. Be the first to see this awesome show.
Heck yeah. How cool is it to have an original show, first of all, written by you guys and performed here? I want to dive into some of the production, too. You mentioned all of it being written. I hear there might be an orchestra involved.
Oh, yes.
As well as cool set pieces and everything. But let's dive into the name first. Well, let's start there. Why Standard Issue? What does that name mean to you?
Well, it's multiple meanings. So in the military, sometimes we refer to ourselves as a standard issue, right? As a GI standard issue. When they give you boots or helmets, sometimes they call it a standard issue boot, right? So standard issue. When the Army assigns you, specifically in the Army, they assign you something, they'll say, standard issue 1 each. So that was one of the catchphrases of the show. But it's also double meaning, right? It's more than, it's actually a triple meaning because, an issue can be a periodical of a magazine or a book or of a story. But then also people have, issues, they have problems in life. And so it's really kind of a triple meaning in this case. The original title was Standard Issue 1 each. We've pared it down over the years to just Standard Issue because we always had to explain what the 1 each meant. People that have served in uniform usually knows what that means. It's something that we normally say, and you're going to hear that in the show. But we had to explain that too many times, so we pared it down to Standard Issue.
Yes.
Yeah, great. I love that. And how did this project begin? Because you've mentioned it was a 5-year process. So how did that start in the first place?
Well, there's the good answer and then the real answer.
Okay, we want the real answer.
The real answer was COVID hit, and we were stuck at home, and I literally said, I don't know if you remember this, I said, I need a project. I'm going crazy. We were heavily involved in our kids' theater life. They were in musical theater. We don't have any musical theater background. Never really went to musical theater until our kids got involved with creative fine arts, and then we just dove in, helping with sets and props and costumes. And then I became on the board of that organization. And when COVID hit, it all went away. And I think that's why it was on the forefront of our minds. But we're always creating things. And I said, I need a project. I'm going to go crazy. And so we started kicking around, what should that project be? Let's write a musical. Why not? Right?
Yeah, we'll start small.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And,
Not a small feat at all, actually.
Yeah. And so we started thinking about themes. And when he said the military, it just clicked. I mean, I was like, of course, that's something he knows about. And also I know about being a spouse of an active duty military soldier. So yeah, we started there. And then it was just a fun process that we would just do after dinner on weekends and for about a year and a half. And then we started saying, okay, we need to get something finished. And I started writing a few of the songs. I'd never done that before and really enjoyed that. And so we decided to show it to some of our musical theater trusted production people. And once we did that, which was very, very scary, because they're friends also. And so showing them something that, we had worked very hard on, that was a little bit scary. And then also it was kind of a declaration, like we're going forward. And so making it a little bit public, not really public, but, getting it out of our own home. And they read it and they told us their very brutal, honest answer.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's a good friend.
Yes. And so out of that, we just went into rewriting, learning more just about story structure and how to tell a great story so that people are engaged and they want to hear it. They want to stay for it. I mean, it's a 3-hour story and we want it to be entertaining and something that everyone can learn from and feel something in that 3 hours.
That's great. And Hank, what about your part in the inception of this project?
Well, once we decided it was going to be Army themed, that was easy. We had to learn a lot about storytelling, like she said, but then there were parts where we knew what we wanted to say, but then we had to say it in a military way. And so that was the easy part. I've spent 20 years in the Army, both enlisted, private through sergeant, and then as an officer, lieutenant through major before I finally retired in 2017. So I know exactly how a private might say something, and I also know how a major might say something. I know how a drill sergeant says something, not because I ever was one, but because I get yelled at by him a lot. So it was easy just to know exactly how a drill sergeant would say something. I've been around him plenty through my years. So that was the easy part for me, is making it sound military, but not so military that normal theater-loving folks won't understand anything in it. We really worked very hard to make sure that this is something anybody would enjoy. People that know nothing about the military would understand everything in it and would enjoy the story. And then our veterans would have some stuff for them as well. Some tidbits, some bits and pieces, some stories, it's all taking place on an active duty tour duty. So, of course, we had to just be careful not to use too many acronyms and too many things specific to the veterans only, and that the theater audience would be taken out of the story because they didn't know what we were talking about.
And I think with any creative project, you start with a spark, and then once you start getting into it, you see all these layers that maybe you weren't aware of at the beginning or even had the intention of. But we started to really focus on that. Hank got into musical theater, and hey, where are the veterans? There's no veterans in this space. And the performing arts community here in Southern Illinois, I mean, they're so welcoming. And they form a little family, and we wanted to write something that would really invite a veteran to take that step into the arts community, which may be kind of scary because it might look like it's not for them, or everybody knows everybody and I'd be weird, and the door opens and everybody looks at me because I'm the new guy or whatever. So we did start writing the script with that new performing veteran in mind. That could either be in the show or backstage. And then we also thought about the audience member, trying to get veterans in just to watch the show. I mean, how many veterans say musical theater? That's not for me. But this is when they know, oh, it's Army themed. I know that. And so they may come to the show, and that's also in mind. And so,
even if they were in the Marines, they could come and make fun of the Army stories if they like. It will apply to any branch of service, though. Though it is specific to the Army, since that was what I knew. We made it so that any veteran during any period of service would enjoy the story and would get the jokes and the nuances of military service. It would speak to all of them.
Yeah, and it was really interesting when we had that first core group of people read our script, because there was only one that was a veteran. And so some of the information or the jokes or the dialogue in it fell totally flat because it lost the non-veteran. And so we knew we had to walk this very fine line in between the veteran, who would love to hear all the jokes and the acronyms and all of that, and then the regular musical theater audience member that may have no history of that at all. And we wanted to merge the two into this little fine line that walks down so everyone can laugh and have fun and really engage in our story. So that was difficult. I think that was one of the most difficult things, to say, how much can we push? How much can we explain without having all this exposition, right?
Yeah, as new writers, we had a lot of exposition.
Yes.
It truly was a
Very
3-hour show
wordy.
back then.
Yes.
It's not a 3-hour show now, is it? I think it's
2.5.
2.5.
Yes.
Sure.
2.5. Yeah.
With
Like a normal musical. Yeah.
Right.
a
With
full
16
musical.
original songs that she wrote. I don't know if you
Wow.
knew that. She wrote all the songs, and they're amazing.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're very good, scattered throughout. The first time we did a staged performance at the Music Street Conservatory here, Market Street, we asked people what their favorite song was, and we had 5 different answers that first time. So that means there's good songs, I think, throughout, and songs that speak
And
to
there's a
different
lot
people.
more since then.
Yeah,
we had to cut some and
Yeah.
write some new ones, and every time the story changed, we'd have to change.
And
the music.
She was heartless, and she had to cut some of the greatest songs. I hope they, when there's an album, they make it to the B side of the album, because there's some really good songs. There was an acronym song and a drill sergeant song and a recruiter song that all had to get cut, because as we learned more about storytelling, we realized they really didn't need a song. They're not really who we're following through the story.
And every time there's a song, you ask the question, does this need to be sung? Or can it just be said? And so some of those songs were like, we don't have to have a song. We don't have to have a song in every scene. It doesn't need it. So the songs are only where we feel like it could be better communicated through a song.
So through that feedback from the first round of hearing from your friends, trusted sources, when did it become, okay, we're going to actually put on this production? Was that always the intent, or was there a moment that you said, okay, now's the time we can do this?
I'm the person who thinks really big and really grand, and then he kind of says, okay, yeah, but how are we going to do that? So I always thought, I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, like let's go to Broadway with this sucker. It's like,
Heck yeah.
yeah.
So as a writing,
Love
we envisioned what it would be like on stage as we crafted the story and learn how to do stage direction, that kind of stuff, like what we put in the script and what we don't put in there. But we really had this vision for it being on a stage. So it was through that lens that we always wrote everything. And we joked about it being the Civic Center. That was the only stage that we knew really well. So a lot of stuff that as we were writing it, we were thinking about that stage in particular, which is amazing.
The ramps on the sides, like
Yeah.
everything we were thinking, yeah, well, that would work, perfectly.
And
yeah.
then here we are 5 years later, we finally get to be on that stage.
Right. But some
Yeah,
doors open for us. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why it took 5 years. Just we had to wait for the doors to open. One of them was Josh Benson at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. He was on board straight away, which was phenomenal. So we didn't have to worry about a space and the cost of a space. And we always had his backing, which has been, just fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if we could have done it without him, because we needed that first public read. We needed the orchestral review, and those were just produced, co-produced by the Civic Center. So, that was amazing. And then the grants, applying for grants, and grants take a long time to come in. So you might apply and not hear back 4 or 5 months, and you don't know if you're getting that funding. And so we had little grants along the way, and then the big one was for the orchestral read last year. That supported that. And then we received a Creative Forces grant about 10 months ago. And so once that happened and the papers were signed, I said, we have to put on a show.
It's go time.
Something
no
is
going
going
back.
to be on that stage
Amazing.
to satisfy this. So we knew we had, once that came in, I mean, that was just a door that I applied for that. And it just so happened that we made the deadline because it's through our nonprofit, Vets in the Arts, and we made the deadline just barely. We had to have like 3 fiscal years and all of that. If I would have not, done that nonprofit paperwork, if it would have been 2 months later, like we wouldn't have qualified for that, and we wouldn't. I don't know if we would have had the funding for that. So just doors opening, and that was a big one to make this happen this June.
Yeah, we have a lot of local sponsors that have been amazing in supporting this as well. The big grants, that's just, there's a requirement. Because to put on a show like this with the sets, costumes, props, all the things that go into it, it's an expensive venture. And we've just really been appreciative of all our local sponsors and partners and of all the grants that have been available through various organizations.
Yes.
It's been amazing.
Yes.
That is amazing. And I want to dive into the story a little bit too. Can you take us on a journey of maybe some of the characters, some of the themes that you guys are addressing during the show?
Okay. It's hard. I don't know how much to reveal. Okay, so we have a main character. His name is Charles Vanderwall, and he comes from more of an affluent background, and he enlists in the Army reluctantly, and you'll find out why when you see the show. But he's reluctant, and he's kind of over it. Like, he doesn't think the Army will do anything for him. It's just a stumbling block to where he actually wants to go. And so, but his father knew better. And so when he gets into boot camp, he meets all sorts of characters from all different walks of life, which is actually, what happens.
Yeah, whatever branch of service that people have served in, they're going to have that experience of meeting people from all walks of life. Very different than they're used to usually, right? Because a lot of veterans come from the rural areas, from small towns. And so now they're thrown in this mix of people from all these different backgrounds, different histories, different parts of the country, different accents. And so our main character has to go through that process as well and learn how to get along with these people and how to work towards his goals, which is to just get it over with, basically, right?
Right. And one of the things that our main character struggles with is, are his choices his own? Or is he just the product of circumstances that other people have forced upon him? And now he's in boot camp, which kind of solidifies that core belief that he already thinks, like, well, I don't have a choice. I mean, my life has kind of already been laid out for me, obviously, because the drill sergeant is telling him where to go and when to eat and when to sleep and all of that. But later on, he really does take ownership of his life and decide that his choices are his own. And yes, consequences happen of certain things that maybe other people do around him, but he can choose how he wants to live his life. And then he goes on deployment. And that happens over intermission. And so things happen on deployment that were out of his control. So now he's pushed back into not knowing which way is really true. And so he has to deal with the fallout from deployment and circumstances that happen then.
Wow.
Yeah, and all our characters have to go through that same thing. And they all deal with the stress of deployment in different ways. And so that's why the first act of this show and the second act are very different. Because the first act is fun, it's family building, it's finding love, it's all of those things. And then we don't show the deployment. That happens during intermission. We didn't want to touch on all of that. But then the second act, they come back from deployment, and all that happens. And so these characters, you've loved watching them grow as a family and unite, and all those things happen. The second act, we see the fallout. And that happens not just of military service, of anyone that experiences trauma or stress in their life, significant changes in their life. They go through this process afterwards. So this will apply to anybody. You don't have to be a veteran or have been deployed to understand what's going to happen in the second act. Anyone with trauma in their life, or even if they haven't had any significant trauma, they're still going to experience it, and our actors are going to tell this story and show it through what they do on stage and through following the script. And that's
right. And because of that, because of Act 2, we touch on mental health struggles. So know your kid. Know if they're old enough to handle watching something like that. It's not graphic or anything like that, but we do discuss it, and the characters have to make choices.
Yeah, very emotional. There's some language in this as well. Since we have drill sergeants and boot camp and all of that, it wouldn't be realistic without some language. But we're very careful in how much we had in here. You know, our first public production of it, our first staged read, we really didn't have much language in it. And then people were like, you know, that's not realistic, right? There should be some language. And so the second time we did that, we added a lot more language, and people were like, whoa, 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 whoa. Way too much. And so we've brought it back a little bit. And so I would think we found a good balancing act where it's appropriate for drill sergeants and some of the
realistic,
characters. Yeah, the language
but
that they use.
yeah.
We don't overdo it. We don't have any blasphemy. We don't have any sexual content in the story. It's just the very emotional stuff in that second act that's really, it's really touching and moving. And, you know, if someone's not prepared for what's going to happen, they might shed a couple of tears in that second act. I'm sorry to say.
Bring your tissues.
Yeah.
Now, it's amazing to hear this process and to hear the involvement of the community. You mentioned the Civic Center and how supportive that Josh Benson's been. Having that stage here to perform on is incredible. And also the feedback you're getting from your individual community members. Can you talk about, and also the story? I mean, that is rich content that anybody, a civilian veteran, can relate to, whether it's trauma or whatever they're going through, hard decisions, transitions. But amazing stories, it sounds like, and really great, rich characters. But can you talk a little bit more about the local scene and some of the people that are actually being performers in this as well?
Okay. We have seasoned actors that you've seen in a lot of shows around Southern Illinois, and then we have first-time veteran performers.
Really?
Yes. And that has been really fun.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to do. We really worked hard to make this an event for veterans to be a part of. Our director, Tim Robinson, he's a Navy veteran. One of the other builders with me, his name is Bryce Dion. He is also a Navy veteran. I'm an Army veteran. But then our cast, we have first-timers that have never been on a stage performing that are going to be in this show. And it's been really fun watching them not just learn how to act and do all the stagecraft and all that, but grow with the rest of the cast. Because that's what a cast does as they're coming up on a show. They really spend so much time together. That cast becomes so tight-knit, and they become a little family. And we even encouraged it early on. We had a week of mini boot camp to teach them how to salute, how to march, how to stand in formation, even had them doing a few push-ups and a few other PT things. So that's how we started off the whole rehearsal process, was teaching them those things. And gradually they just grew into a tight-knit family. So watching these theater people and these veterans grow together and enjoy their time together and laugh and have fun. And even after rehearsals, they're hanging out together. And really amazing story. One of our first-time performers, he's already went on to audition for another show because he's having such a good experience with being in this show. And that's a huge thing for us to see that. That's what we want ultimately out of this.
Right. And I think it's really cool that the veterans, the first-time performers, I think, I'm projecting here, but I think they would probably walk into the space and have such respect for the seasoned musical theater performers. But because this is a military show, I think all the seasoned theater performers, they've realized they don't know how to walk, how to salute, and all of that. And then our veterans stepped up, and so they have respect for the veterans in the room. And it's this collaboration coming together that they play off of each other, and they're learning from each other.
That's beautiful. And it sounds like that's with Vets in the Arts. Can you talk about that and how that mission ties into this?
Yeah, so that's one of the things we want to do through Vets in the Arts. We had to form the nonprofit as a way of applying for grants and receiving funds to support this. We started that in 2021, kind of in parallel with writing of this story, anticipating the future of it and knowing that if we wanted this to grow, this is what we'd have to do. But realizing the bigger picture that we want to, that's going to be our legacy as Vets in the Arts. That's going to continue. Any proceeds from the show, we have to pay cast and, orchestra and all that. Any extra proceeds that come from ticket sales will go to Vets in the Arts. And through that, we want to encourage and enable veterans to participate in the arts. First-timers to seasoned theater, to dancing, to painting, to poetry, whatever it is, we want to enable and support that so they can start telling their story, give them the skills, give them the opportunities to start sharing their stories.
Well, it sounds like you're fulfilling that mission with this, so kudos and congrats on that.
Well, that's just another one of those layers that came out of this creative project that we didn't foresee until later. And then we said, hey, this can go bigger. Like, we see that this needs to be bigger, and that's also why the nonprofit was formed.
That's great. And what would you like for a veteran to take with them when they leave the show?
So our main character, Vanderwall, he takes notes. And he says he's not a writer, but he takes a lot of notes. And there's some characters that he's taking notes on. The characters think their stories are boring or they're not interesting or whatever. And he reassures them. And he says, no, you don't understand. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story is unique. Everybody's story will break your heart, right? And so I think that is kind of in line with the mission of Vets in the Arts, is like, no, you don't understand. You are unique. You have a story, and you should tell that story in whatever format. Maybe it's just walking out of the theater and talking to your children or your spouse or whoever about your stories in the military, or whatever kind of story that you want to talk, just opening a dialogue. And so encouraging people to be creative. And I really think that being creative is missing. And I heard something, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but that being anxious and being creative cannot exist in the same space. So if you're anxious, do something creative. Cook a meal, write something, write in a journal or whatever, and you just can't, those two things can't exist in the same space. And so I just think people need to be encouraged to share their story in a creative way, and hopefully this will inspire them to do that.
Even if they leave the show, a veteran leaves the show and says that I got the cadences all wrong. They turn to the spouse and say, no. That's not how it went. This is how it went. Even if that's what I want them to share those stories, right? It could be that one of our characters reminds them of an old friend they had in boot camp or when they served overseas or wherever it was. Maybe something in our characters or a situation reminds them of something. And I want them to tell that story to somebody, because if they don't share that story, it'll be like it never happened. Eventually, it'll go away, their time will pass, and no one will ever hear that story, right? So if you don't share it, it never existed. So we want to encourage people, even if it's saying that Hank got the cadences wrong. I'm okay with that, right? Just share that with your family and your friends.
I love that. That's two great takeaways. If not anything else from this podcast, is instead of being anxious, do something creative, and then also tell your story. That's two really great messages, guys. So appreciate you sharing that. I do want to talk a little bit about the rehearsals. You mentioned it, getting an orchestra together. Can you dive a little bit more into that? What does that involve? How long does that last? Because some people might want to put on a musical themselves and they don't have any idea about what it takes from behind the scenes. Can you just give a brief overview of what goes into all that? Because it's a lot, I know, right?
Yes, it's a lot, and that's why you hire a really good production team. I mean, I'm not a director, nor do I want to be, and I see how that set of skills is different than what we have managed to learn over the past 5 years. I mean, we can talk about writing a musical and writing music, but as far as even orchestrating music, Derek Hamlin orchestrated all of, I would give him what I had, and he created this wonderful orchestra pieces of all the music. And so just knowing if somebody wants to do something like this, pull your resources. I mean, we're a resource. We can be contacted. But, I mean, if you want to know how to direct a musical, I would point you to a fantastic director, a fantastic choreographer. And so those rehearsals have that production team there. And we'll be on the side, and they may say, hey, can we take liberties here since we're the writers? And we'll say yes, or we'll say, well, the intention was this here. So if you can stay with the intention, go for it. Even especially with the strict formation things.
Yeah, we're talking about military-specific things. There are some things that we said, yeah, be creative with that, go crazy. And there's some things that kind of have to have at least start in the military strict format with saluting and formations and how soldiers talk to each other and how they talk to their superiors. That stuff has to be right, or we're going to have a bunch of veterans in the audience rolling their eyes, right? So certain things have to be right, but then there's parts where it changes to the musical theater part of it. So, for example, during the scene CIF, which is the Central Issuing Facility, everyone's been in the military at some point. They give them their boots and their helmet and all their gear and their uniforms. Everyone's been through that experience, but they usually don't break into song and dance at the CIF facility, right? There'd be a lot of push-ups involved if you ever tried that. So they have to understand that this is a musical theater, so that does happen, but the drill sergeant brings them right back. when we always bring them back to reality. When they go into a song for something, they come right back, right? And it's not a big, flashy, showy. I mean, it's amazing choreography in the songs, but it's not musical theater like you're thinking. Some Broadway shows get really flashy and they do all these. These are soldiers acting on the stage. They're going to be in uniform. They're going to be in boots. They're going to do some amazing things in those costumes and with those props. But they're not. I don't think there's any backflips and any pinwheels or anything like that, right? So, go ahead.
I just think Southern Illinois has this rich talent pool, and if somebody wanted to do something that's completely new to them, contact somebody that you know who's already doing it if you can. And most people are excited when they're contacted and want to share their knowledge and their experience and all of that. You may get a no, but you won't get all no's. And so, and I mean, we did not create this in a vacuum. The first thing we did, right, we gave it to people that we trusted and really took their feedback to heart and made a lot of decisions to go in different ways. And then we had table reads and we brought more people, and we may have asked, 8 veterans to come and 3 came. I mean, just you have to set ego aside and just listen to their feedback and just think about the project that you want at the end of it and be ready and don't take it personal. And that's one thing that I never took, if somebody told me my song was bad or the lyrics were wrong or whatever. I mean, I say, okay, I want the best musical we can have. So it's not personal. I can write another song. No problem.
No problem?
No problem. No problem.
Constructive criticism is essential for artists and performers. And
it's essential, I think. Yeah. And the theater community here is like no other place. And I've heard from people that move in that want to get their kids involved in theater, like, what? You have several kids theater programs here? Are you kidding me? And they come from cities and they had to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for their kids to get involved in here. You pay a small little fee and you get the best of the best here.
But if anyone out there wants to start writing stories, don't start with musical theater. That is not the genre I would recommend starting with. Start with a short story. Start with poetry.
I looked on YouTube, how to write a musical, right, in 2020. How to write a musical. You go to YouTube, of course. And the first video, it said, just don't. And then it said, okay, are you still here? Yeah, I'm going to tell you, don't. It's going to take you 5 years. Don't. And that's what that, and it didn't really give me a lot of information, but that I remember that. And it did. It took 5 years.
Wow. That's amazing. And now here we are. This will be released tomorrow at the time we're recording this.
Next.
But the show is
June 6th.
the following weekend.
Yes.
Okay.
So June 6th to 8th. Mm-hmm. Where do people get tickets?
Box office, Marion Cultural and Civic Center. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but marioncc.com.
Amazing.
Yes,
and you mentioned the amazing theater community here. That's definitely worth highlighting more. And big shout out to everybody that's done that. And also the Civic Center. None of this would be possible without having that facility rebuilt after the fire in that location.
And it's gorgeous.
To offer
and the lighting and the sound and everything that Josh has
amazing.
Put in there.
And what an opportunity for
Top
performers.
Yeah, we go to other cities and see things. We're always like, the sound.
It's not as good as
but the sound, right? But the lights. Like we're not very hypercritical people like that, but really,
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, our Civic Center is amazing. There's nothing like it around here.
So lucky to have that in a community of our size as well.
Right. We go down to the Carson Center in Paducah. Civic Center rates. I mean, it's the Civic Center is just up there.
It's an amazing facility
to have it right here too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so I do want to. I asked about the veteran takeaway from the show. What about the civilian side? Or is there something you want the civilian to take away after seeing this show?
Well, as a civilian, that's more speaking to the layers. I did not grow up with veterans in my family, so I really came to our marriage and meeting Hank with no experience whatsoever. So I can understand that audience member that walks in that has no reference point. And I always respected veterans and thought I understood the service and the choice behind that. but I didn't. Until you have a personal connection, you just really don't get it fully. And I am hoping that seeing something that you can feel, that you can emote to in this story, and seeing it on stage in a big way, and music really gets, into your bones and all of that, that they will have that personal connection if they don't have it anywhere else.
And I hope they can see how these bonds are built. Because you sit me down in a room with a veteran I never met, and we're telling stories, and we're best friends in no time at all. And I want non-military people to understand how that happens. So through this story, they're going to see how that brotherhood, how that bond is built. We did the best we could in that first act to lay that out there so that people will understand the experiences that we've all shared together and why me and a strange veteran can get along so well out of the blue that we've never met before. And I don't have to see them again for 3 years and we'll be good friends when we see each other next time. That's just the nature of hanging out with veterans. And it's through that experience that it's because of that shared experience we have that. And so I hope that the non-military people understand that a little better when they see this musical.
Great answers there. I do want to touch on, is there any plans now? I know you mentioned this a little bit already, but for after the show, is there anything with the show that you would like to see, or anything, or just celebrate because it's been 5 years at this point? And
well, we have a studio recording that we're going to do with Velocity Studio.
Oh, great.
Velocity Recording Studio. That will happen a week after the show. So we did receive a grant for that. And so I'm really excited. The orchestra will be professionally recorded, and then the actors will come into the studio and do that. So once that is done, yes.
That's exciting.
We will take a break, but we will now have, a full video recording of the show. We will have the completed book. We'll have the completed libretto, like all of that.
So
and then that can be submitted to theater festivals or however you get it out. I mean, we can start submitting it to people that can actually make it bigger.
That's
Or
amazing.
go further.
Wow.
And it may or may not.
Yeah.
But
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's an amazing project. And what a cool thing for Southern Illinois. What a cool thing for veterans to give them that opportunity, even if it's an introduction. Why do arts matter for veterans, or why should there might be you mentioned maybe a veteran wouldn't walk into the Civic Center, and maybe the music theater community isn't maybe typically what you think of when you think of a veteran. So why is it important for arts important for veterans?
I think a lot of us veterans, it's very easy for us to pull back and say, I'm good. I got this. And we tend to bury ourselves in little holes that way. We pull way back a little too far, and then it becomes uncomfortable to come out of that. It becomes uncomfortable to share with non-military people. It becomes uncomfortable to try something new because we found that we can find comfort in just doing what we've been doing, right? And, I've got this. So we really want veterans to understand that they can to take that next step. It's difficult, but veterans are used to doing difficult things. They've done it for years, right? Auditioning for a show is not harder than going to boot camp, right? It's a different type of stress, but it's only 2 minutes, and it's nothing like doing push-ups for 8 weeks straight, right? So I think it's important for veterans to see that this being involved in the arts is a great way to get your story out, get out of that comfortable place, and start sharing, start participating, start being with family and friends and doing new things. Even if they don't like theater arts, if they want to do other things, that's fine with me. I've got some memories from my time in Iraq that I don't think would work well as a short story, but it might work well as a poem or a painting to capture the emotion of the scenes. Will I try that in the future? Maybe, right? But I want veterans to know that they can do that. There's a way of doing those things, and we want them to be comfortable doing it and knowing it can be done, right? It doesn't have to be the best thing in the world. It can be your thing. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, creativity goes back to getting rid of that anxiety, or even just therapeutic benefits for creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We are creative beings. And I think, being in the military is a very physical job. And if you put that into your identity, that you're this physical thing you create, through your strength or whatever, the arts is being vulnerable and raw and opening up yourself for rejection and That's very difficult in its own way, rather than, lifting a lot of weight or whatever. And there's a lot of veterans groups that focus on physical activities, and that's fantastic, and it's needed, and, hiking or running or whatever it may be, but that's part of it. I mean, we need nourishment in other ways rather than just the physical, and I think the arts fills that gap.
It's amazing. Wow. What an amazing project, you guys. Congrats on getting this far and taking to the stage here at the Civic Center. Kudos to you. I'm very, very excited for you guys. Before we end, I just want to do a quick lightning round just to kind of end on a fun note and just kind of, just try to have a good time. But is there any one moment that has changed you on this journey?
One moment. I think
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what took the turn for us was having friends read it. Like, that was an instant switch. That was a, like,
Right.
this
But
is
I
real.
think our first staged read,
Oh man, that broke me. That's right.
apart from the putting it on and the stress of putting it on, having feedback and having someone that we didn't know come, because it was a public reading, and didn't know and put on their feedback form how they saw themselves up there as the spouse of someone who had come back from deployment. Like, that was like, okay, we're hitting right where we need to hit, that we are relating to the veteran, because we got a lot of feedback from veterans. Oh yeah, that was fun. I remember that, and the boot camp and the drill sergeant stuff, all the fun stuff. But then the story part of it, that it was unique to our main character and his wife, but also it resonated with someone who was going through some very difficult times, struggling with marriage issues and PTSD and things like that with their spouse. So that was kind of a reassuring moment, I think, that we were right where we needed to be.
I said that almost broke us, because if you don't realize, it says we wrote this script, right? But we're also producing any of the events. Like, we're doing a lot. I had to really scrub my fingernails, because we're painting and we're building sets.
Still.
And just for anything that we've done, any of the stage reads, there's a lot of work that we have to do that is not as writers, but as now producers. So that's what I mean by that almost broke us, because that was very challenging the first time putting on something like that, an event like that for us.
And you had to step in.
And I had to step in at the last minute
To fill a role.
Yeah, because someone
Somebody
dropped
didn't-
out.
yeah,
Friday,
somebody dropped
the
out,
Friday
couldn't
night,
make
and this
it.
was a Sunday
Yes.
evening performance. So
You're the understudy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
All of a
luckily,
sudden.
I wrote that. So I played
That's
the role
right.
of an Army major, which I was one.
Wow.
And I wrote. So
Right.
I was able to do that pretty quickly. But I didn't have any stage presence, and I didn't need any, and I didn't have to sing.
Right.
And in this one, you're going to see next week here at the Civic Center. I am on stage very briefly. I will be unmiked. I will be singing along, but not singing out loud, because we want people to come to the show. So that'll be my first time as on stage here at the Civic Center.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm excited
like
for you.
this.
That's a special moment for sure.
And if you didn't know, I'm going to look a lot different. If this is on video or on audio only, I'm a pretty hairy mess right now. I've been growing my hair out. We have a little Facebook and Instagram video out there. I'm asking people to comment on them to tell me what kind of military style haircut I need to have. So next Tuesday at 4:00, we're going to do a live, and myself and some other cast members are going to get haircuts. And so I've, in solidarity with our cast, as it has to cut their hair.
I am not doing that.
Yeah. I'm also agreed to cut my hair just for fun. And so I'm letting Facebook and Instagram commentators tell me what I'm going to get from
Is it the
Okay, guys.
buzz, the
boot
mighty
camp,
fine?
boot camp, buzz cut all the way to a normal looking haircut. And,
Okay, we
but
got to
so
go to
far-
the Facebook page and do this now.
So far, the buzz cut is in the lead. So get on Facebook or Instagram, Standard Issue, the musical, and add a comment to what kind of haircut you want me to have.
He's had a beard since
2017. Since I retired.
So I don't know what the
Wow.
lower half of his face looks like.
I don't know how many chins are under here, how much gravel is under here either. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting.
All
So
for
we'll-
the show.
Yeah, so we'll do a live just for fun, just for camaraderie with the cast, and maybe get some people to comment on the video and follow us on social media. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. What a cool promotion. How fun. All right. So, next question. What would you say to a veteran that doesn't consider themselves an artist, but maybe they should?
What is an artist? Right?
Yeah. They have a story to tell. And whether they served right next to me through all 20 of my years or served across the country, never crossed paths, they have a story to tell. And even if they're right next to me, they would have a story, a different experience than I had, even though we were the same time, the same place. They could sit down and tell stories that have nothing to do with what I went through. And I could learn from them and they could learn from me. And, I don't know if anyone else wants to hear their story, but I want to hear their story, right? I want them to share it. I love talking to veterans. If I sit down with the veteran, we're telling stories in no time flat. I work at the VA hospital. I'm not here as a representative of the VA, of course, but I get to hear veteran stories all day long, and I never get tired of them. I have never run out of ability to listen to and enjoy a veteran's story. So I hope people start sharing a little more. Yeah.
That's great. Love that. Do you have a favorite lyric or line from the show? Or I guess a song or number?
My favorite song is On the Page, which is the second song in the show. I don't know. I think it was a harder one for me to write because it sums up a lot of the emotions in the show. It was one of the last ones. It wasn't in the orchestral. It was in the orchestral read.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the first one. So favorite lyric. I mean, it talks about how if you write it down and you write about that person, that if you're not with that person, you can go back and read it again, and then you're right back there with that person again, so they can live on the page.
It's beautiful. Wow. Is there anything else you guys want to share? I feel like we've covered a lot today, but the mic is yours. If there's anything we've missed, or if you want to invite people or just let them know how to get involved with what you're doing, or invite them to come to the show, or even future sponsors or anything like that, the floor is yours.
Well, come to the show first and foremost. So I support our cast and our veterans that are on stage for the first time. Watching these rehearsals and watching them grow, it's been amazing. You are not going to be disappointed in this show. It is amazing. The songs are amazing. If you're a fan of storytelling, you're a fan of music, or you're a veteran and want to hear some veteran stories and be reminded of the good times in the military and a few of the bad times, this is for you. But after the 6th, 7th, and 8th, you may not be able to see it here again. So don't come. I don't want someone to be the first person to say, oh, I wish I had seen it, because this is it.
So share this, guys, too. If you know people, let them know, because they're not going to want to miss this maybe one chance, and we might not get it again.
Right. Thank you very much for having us.
Luke.
It was fun.
Really appreciate it. That was easy.
Yeah,
Not too bad? Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. Standard Issue, the musical, guys. Go support it June 6th to 8th at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. David, cue the outro. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Standard Issue, the musical. Guys, give it up for our guest, Hank and Deanna Deiters.
Got it.
You guys are killing it. Love this story. Thank you for coming on. Where can people find you online to comment on what Hank's haircut should be?
Standard Issue, the musical, on Facebook or Instagram. Tell me what kind of a haircut I'm going to have next Tuesday evening. We'll do a live.
Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Tuesday at 4 o'clock, we'll do a live of me getting a haircut and all this going.
We'll definitely be on that live stream that day. Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you all listening and watching at the Marion Civic Center for this awesome show. Love your guys' mission. Love the story. I can't wait to see the show. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Luke.
I'll invite you
Appreciate
back
it.
next time.
In 5 years, maybe.
All right.
With another one.
Reach out. We'll do it. See ya.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. We're deciding what night's going to be.